Hi guys, this is Chet here from Avion Technology here in the Chicagoland area. We are a digital agency that works for other digital agencies, helps small digital agency owners scale up. We also work with a lot of other small businesses, helping them scale up through lead gen and improving their web presence and through generally making them more technology friendly, I guess. So today's topic is what's your business is worth, right? So if I asked you, right, what does the typical profile of a millionaire look like in the U.S., you would probably tell me that it's some guy in his 20s who drives a Rolls Royce, who gets out of a chopper, right? He has like a really attractive lady next to him. He's in a black suit. He eats caviar and drinks, the choicest French champagne. That's actually not what a real millionaire looks like. So there's this one book I really want you all to go and read. It's called The Millionaire Next Door. You can see a link for it here. Awesome book, amazing book, right? Because they have nailed down in terms of a profile, in terms of really like the minutia, right? Like what kind of watches do the real millionaires buy, and what kind of shoes do the real millionaires buy, and what kind of cars do the real millionaires drive. And turns out that most of the real millionaires, right, and we're talking about like folks whose net worth is like 4, 5, 10 million, they are actually extremely frugal. They're usually in their mid-50s. They're in a services business, like a bricks and mortar services business, like HVAC, plumbing, they're CPAs, they're lawyers. They've been doing it for 20, 30 years, and they've built wealth over those 20, 30 years by being thrifty, right? The guy or gal that you see, being showy, showing off money, all that, is actually not the one who's made it. More often than not, they're paying for all of that through debt or through a high income lifestyle where they're not saving a lot but spending most of the money to consumption. This is the paradox, right? Like most of the millionaires, the real millionaires, the millionaires in actual like dollar terms, 5, 10 million, they live in like 400,000 houses, $300,000 houses, and they have like real bank balances, and they have like real stocks and like real stuff happening. And if you actually go to like a really expensive neighborhood where people are living like $1 million house and $2 million, $3 million houses, more often than not, they really do not have a lot of savings. Most of their incomes are going to pay for their consumption, so high-end cars, high-end houses, country club memberships. So what usually happens, right? I mean, a lot of this stuff is really, all the things that, we've heard in all the wisdom of all the people in the past, right? Which is, the life is essentially a fight between instant gratification and delayed gratification, right? Those of us who want instant gratification consume now. Those of us who want delayed gratification save now and consume later. So what's the difference, right? Instant gratification is right happiness now. Delayed gratification is that same happiness which comes compounded, right? So the first thing you as a business owner have to kind of work out in your mind is, do you want instant gratification or do you want delayed gratification, right? Do you want instant gratification in your 20s, 30s, or do you want delayed gratification in your 50s, where you can actually enjoy all these things that you want to do in your 20s but in a more compounded way? So that's the first question you gotta ask. So if you look at most of these millionaires, right, a lot of their net worth is actually tied in their business. Usually about 30-40% of the net worth is actually tied in their business. But a lot of folks I've seen, and they really like what they do, but they don't know what their business is worth. So there's several ways you can find out. There's discounted cash flow, which is basically all the money, that cash that can be taken out of your business from now to infinity and back. There's EBITDA, which is your earnings minus interest and amortization, depreciation, taxes, right? Then there's SDE, which is essentially your earnings, your income, and it's based on that. So I won't go into a lot of detail about this. By the way, like this is a conversation, right? None of what I'm saying today is is like financial or legal advice. First thing, if you want to know more about this, speak to your CPA. The specialists who know how to value a business, they usually take about $5,000, $10,000 as for the due diligence, and then they will tell you, they'll work with you for a month, and then they'll kind of come up with some number about your business, right? But definitely know what your business is worth. Number one. Number two is that know that it's a long game, right? To create wealth, it's not a 5-year, 10-year thing. To create wealth, it takes 20, 30 years, right? So if you're in your mid-20s, so we love really those hockey stick kind of growth scenarios where, 25-year-old kid started a business, by the time he was 35, he was a billionaire. Those do happen, don't get me wrong, but they're an extreme outlier, right? Usually what happens is it's a 20, 25-year-old who starts like a small business, like HVAC, plumbing, web design, development, or, like a CPA attorney, something like that. And then they, over 20, 30 years, they actually have a book of clients, and they've been, delivering consistently for 20, 30 years, and that's how they build their wealth. So it's a long game. So know why, right? Know the why. Know why you want to do this. Know why you want to build wealth, right? The one advice that I'm going to give you is that if you're planning to build wealth for your retirement, amazing, but there's a number for that, right? And usually you will cross that number like in your 30s itself, right? If you're building a business. So the money that you need for your retirement, you will overshoot that number. The second thing is, folks usually say, I want to leave money for my kids or my grandkids. That's a place that I want to warn you, because what makes people successful, what makes them ambitious, is a certain amount of adversity and a certain amount of hardships in life, right? And if you're going to leave money for your next generation, trust me, you're going to take all that ambition, all that drive, all that zest, all the, everything that they need to become ambitious, you're going to take it out of them. Instead, you're going to give them a life of comfort and luxury. Because most of us who are entrepreneurs, we went out on this path because we wanted to make money. We wanted to give a better life to our next generation, right? So we wanted them not to have the adversity that we had. But in doing this, what we fail to realize is that the adversity made us who we are. It's those difficult situations that made us who we are. So if you want your next generation to, work to their potential, to, make it to their potential, please keep it in mind. Let them have their share of adversity. Do not ever mention at any dinner table conversation how much the kids are going to inherit, number one. And honestly, make sure they don't inherit a lot. Now, I'm not saying, don't cover some of their expenses. Make sure you give them a good education. Have a small contingency fund for them, just in case, life happens, they have something to fall back on. And maybe leave like a little bit of a pension fund, but do not leave them a yacht. Do not leave them like 10, 15, 20 million, because all that's going to do is they're going to A, look at you as an ATM, right, which is something none of us want, but B, that's going to make them, so anytime someone receives 10, 20 million, the first thing they do is they'll spend. So if you give them 10 million, trust me, in a decade, they'll spend all of that through vices, bad habits, overconsumption, and they'll actually be bankrupt, right? Or, if not bankrupt, at least, that it'll take away all their ambition. So know the why you want to earn, what you want to do after 20, 30 years of doing this, right? I have personally always believed that in the utility of things, right? If my child gets 5 million from me, the next dollar that he or she gets has very little value. But if I can help fund the education of 100 children, if I can help pay for the hospital expenses of 100 veterans, there's so many things you can do, right? I think my dollar has gone way more than what it would have gone had I given that as an inheritance, right? So definitely make provisions for yourself, make provision for your next generation. But I think, also, the best way to leave your legacy is to actually make a mark in society, right? So this is absolutely important. This is actually something that a lot of new, folks who are new to business, that this is something that they struggle a lot with, is the why. the long game, right? Why am I doing this next 20, 30 years? I always think that life happens in the long term. An interesting statistic about Warren Buffett, I think this was back in 2015 or 2010, is that he made, like, out of the $85 billion of his net worth at that time, 83 billion came after his 65th birthday, right? So at the time of his 65th birthday, he was actually worth 2 billion, right? So we kind of tend to look at the long term and discount the long term, whereas actually your true growth, your true potential is only reached when you've been doing things for 20, 30, 40 years, right? That's when things compound, and that's when amazing things happen. So if you're in your 20s, if you're in your 30s, ask yourself the why, and then figure out how you can be in the long game. And the only way you can do that is doing something that you love, doing something that you like. Here at Avion Technology, we develop apps, we develop websites for small businesses, to help them scale up. We also work with other agencies to help them scale up as well. If you like this content, press like. If you want to subscribe to our channel, or give us a shout. These are my coordinates. Thank you so much. Have an awesome week. Thank you.